Hi, this is Quinn. Welcome back to my podcast, Thinking with Quinn. Today, I want to talk about something that half of the world's population experiences, but many of us still feel uncomfortable talking about. Imagine you're sitting in class and you suddenly realize you've gotten your period. What's the first thing you do? For a lot of girls, the first thought probably isn't, oh, I got my period. It's more like, oh no, did it leak? Can anyone tell? Do I have blood on my pants? I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling. But why? Why is our first instinct to hide it? So, why are periods treated like a secret? What exactly are we hiding? One thing I've noticed is that when girls go to the bathroom during their period, many of us don't just carry a pad in our hand. We hide it. We put it inside a pocket or inside a sleeve, or we quickly slip it into a backpack before walking to the bathroom. And honestly, I do that too. That's actually what made me start thinking about this topic. Because if you ask me whether periods are something to be ashamed of, I would immediately say, of course not. I know having a period is completely normal. I know there's nothing embarrassing about it. So then, why do I still feel awkward walking to the bathroom holding a pad? Sometimes we know something logically, but emotionally, we still feel completely different. Even when we know something is perfectly normal, we can still feel embarrassed because we've grown up with certain expectations about what's considered private or awkward. And that's when I realized maybe this isn't just my own feeling. Maybe we've learned to feel this way. So, why do we hide periods? I don't think it's because periods themselves are embarrassing. I think it's because we've learned that they're supposed to be. Growing up, I really saw people talk openly about periods. If someone needed a pad, they would whisper. If someone leaked through their clothes, it was treated like the most embarrassing thing that could ever happen. Even advertisements for period products often use blue liquid instead of red blood. It's almost as if society is saying, we know periods exist, but let's pretend they don't. And I think that affects us more than we realize. One reason might simply be blood. Blood is often associated with injury, danger, or something dirty. So when people hear the word blood, their first reaction isn't usually positive. But period blood isn't the same as getting a cut. It's part of a healthy biological process. Another reason is that periods only happen to women and some transgender men and non-binary people. So for a long time, they were treated as women's issues rather than simply human issues. When something only affects one group of people, it's often pushed into the private sphere instead of becoming something everyone understands. And once something becomes private, it often becomes awkward. But then another question came to my mind. If periods are so normal, why don't we learn more about them? I think a lot of adults simply feel uncomfortable talking about periods. Maybe their parents never talk about them either. Maybe they worry that talking about periods is inappropriate. Or maybe they think girls will figure it out eventually. But honestly, why should we have to figure it out on our own? We teach children about brushing their teeth. We teach them about washing their hands. We teach them about eating healthy. So why don't we talk about something that almost every girl will experience for decades of her life? And it's not only girls who should learn. Boys should learn too. Not because they'll have periods themselves, but because they'll have classmates, friends, sisters, partners, daughters, and colleagues who do. Understanding period isn't girls' knowledge. It's just knowledge. Looking back, there are quite a few things I wish someone had told me earlier. First, periods aren't dirty. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. They're simply part of how the reproductive system works. Second, every period is different. Some people barely feel any pain, like my mom. Others experience cramps so painful that they struggle to go to school or work. Neither experience is more normal than the other. And thirdly, exercise isn't automatically bad during your period. In fact, many people find that gentle exercise actually helps reduce cramps. And of course, if you're exhausted or in severe pain, resting is perfectly okay too. And finally, your cycle might not be perfectly regular, especially when you're younger. Our bodies aren't machines, they change, so it's completely normal. So, what's actually happening during a period? Every month, the uterus prepares for a possible pregnancy by building up a thick lining full of blood vessels and nutrients. If pregnancy doesn't happen, that lining isn't needed anymore, so the body sheds it. That's what a period is. In other words, your body isn't getting rid of dirty blood, it's renewing itself. I actually think that's pretty amazing. It's a sign that your reproductive system is working the way it's supposed to. Of course, everyone's body is different. Some people have heavy periods, some have light ones, some have regular cycles, others don't. And if something feels unusual or worrying, it's always a good idea to speak to a healthcare professional. Living with periods isn't only about bleeding once a month. It's about learning what your own body needs. I've realized that getting enough sleep makes a huge difference. Staying hydrated helps too. And eating regular meals can sometimes make me feel better. Everyone has their own ways of managing cramps. Some people use heating pads, some exercise, some take pain medication, some simply need extra rest. I don't think there's one perfect way to deal with periods. The important thing is listening to your own body instead of comparing yourself to everyone else. Since I moved from China to Finland, I've also noticed some cultural differences. In China, one piece of advice you'll hear all the time is drink warm water. Whether you have a cold, a stomach ache, or a period cramps, someone will probably tell you to drink warm water. Traditional Chinese beliefs also encourage keeping the body warm during your period. And in Finland, and more generally in Europe, I've noticed people seem more likely to talk about things like exercise, pain relief, or medical advice. The approaches are different, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It reminds me that health is shaped not only by biology, but also by culture. Different societies develop different ways of understanding the same experience. So, could this change? I think it already has. More people are talking openly about periods than ever before. Schools are starting to provide better education. More brands are showing period blood as red instead of blue in advertisements. And more people are speaking honestly about period pain, PCOS, and other conditions that were ignored for a long time. But I also think change starts with ordinary conversations, not only on social media, not only in schools, but between friends, between parents and children, between brothers and sisters, between everyone. I don't think the goal is for everyone to talk about periods every day. That's not realistic, but maybe we can stop treating them like a secret. Maybe girls shouldn't feel like they have to hide a pad on the way to the bathroom. Maybe boys shouldn't feel awkward when the topic comes up. Maybe teachers, parents, and doctors can answer questions without making people feel embarrassed. And maybe we can simply remember that having a period isn't something unusual. It's one of the most ordinary biological processes in the world. At the beginning of this episode, I asked why our first instinct is often to hide our periods. I don't think there's just one answer. Maybe it's because of the way we were raised, maybe it's because of the way society talks about periods, or maybe it's because silence has been passed down from one generation to the next. But I also think silence can be broken. Every time a parent has an honest conversation with their child, every time a friend says, "Hey, do you have a pad?" without whispering, periods have existed for as long as humans have existed. Maybe it's time we stop treating them like a secret. Thank you so much for listening to Thinking with Quinn. If this episode made you think, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!